We have rules, and rules are there for a reason, right? The 2 rules that I gave him were for his own protection. And he followed them, and thankfully he did the right thing, and I'm glad that he did. But when is it okay to break the rules? I want to share with you maybe 3 times that I feel like it's okay to break rules.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Had a harrowing experience recently, not a fun one. I ended up breaking my scapula, which is your shoulder blade, folks. It is not a fun experience. I'm going to tell you how it happened and the lessons that I learned from that little experience. But I want to first remind you we are sponsored by ANOW Software. Of course, ANOW being the software that I use in my office to run everything, to manage everything. In fact, just a few minutes ago, I was on there just seeing how the volume is for the month, and we're doing okay. And that's what ANOW will tell me in the split second. I just have to click a button and I'm there. anow.com/coach is where you want to go. It's anow.com/coach. All right, folks, here's the scene. Several weeks ago, took my 11-year-old. I know this is stupid. I'm going to get hate mail for this. I took my 11-year-old dirt biking, just him and I. Probably not a wise thing to do. I probably should have gone with I definitely should have gone with another adult, but it was kind of his and I's time. I had kind of taken some alone time with some of my other kids recently, and he had been kind of left out. And, my wife and I try on a pretty regular basis to take time out for our kids. Our goal is once a month that each of us spend some one-on-one time with our kids. We have 4 kids. One of them is not living at home. Well, 2 of them really kind of are not living at home. So it's a lot easier than it was when they were younger. That's 4 nights out of the month that we're just spending with them. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant usually, but just some alone time. Maybe, sometimes it's running and taking comp pictures together, honestly. That is alone time. It gives dad and daughter or dad and son some time to talk. And we've done a lot of creative things over the years, but this particular trip was he and I. We were going to go up on a Friday night. We were going to spend the night up in the hills, just him and I in a tent. And the next day we were going to ride a trail that goes in about 14 miles. It's beautiful. It's up in the Grand Teton area of Idaho. And we got up there. We had a great evening around the fire and slept in a tent. Woke up to frost on the tent, and the next morning it was very bitterly cold. Started to get to be fall time when we were up there. And then we rode our motorcycles up this trail. We got about 3 miles in, and I need to set the stage here because it will become important to the story in just a little bit. So what I found was as I'm riding, my son, who's only 11, and he's had very limited time on a motorcycle. By the way, we have all the safety gear and all that jazz. So for those of you who are writing that hate mail about, the dangers of going up on a trail with your son and nobody else, the other thing you need to know is we went to a very populated area, and it was a holiday weekend. And so, the chances of being alone were pretty small. It felt like I'd have some help if I needed some. But what I found in the very beginning of this trip was I'm riding along and spending time with my son and loving every minute of it, but he's so slow. And for those of you who have ridden dirt bikes, you know that part of the fun is kind of like, bouncing over the little ruts and the rivets and the dents and the little hills and kind of, getting a little air once in a while and, being careful and all along, but kind of riding a little bit fast. And it was a little bit boring, honestly, with my son. It was just a little bit slow. And so at one point I said, hey, buddy, because what would happen is I would let him get ahead and then I would go kind of fast and then I would catch up to him, right? And what was happening was he kept stopping and waiting for me. Oh, Dad's not behind me. I need to stop and wait. And I said, hey, buddy, you don't need to stop and wait for me. I'm much faster than you. Trust me. Just keep riding. I will find you. I will catch up to you. Just keep on the trail. If you get to a fork in the road, don't take either one. Just wait for me at that point. But if the trail keeps on going, just keep going. It'll be fine, right? So that was rule number 1 for him. Rule number 2 is the same rule that I give him every time we go into the hills, and I don't care if we're alone or with someone else. I always remind them that rule number one is if you are lost, stay put. Okay. You've heard when you were young, hug a tree, right? That has another meaning today than it did back then. But nonetheless, if you get lost, stay put, because the problem is when people who are lost try to find other people, they end up getting more and more lost and deeper. And your search is a lot easier if you know the general vicinity that they were in. And it usually doesn't take somebody too long to figure out, oh crap, I'm lost. If they'll just sit down and wait, normally someone will find them. So those are the two rules I gave him. Okay. Number one, quit waiting for me. Number two, if you get lost, stay put. Don't go anywhere. Don't try to find me. I'll find you. Okay. You guys see where this is going, right? So he was riding, and literally 5 seconds after I saw him turn a corner, I crashed. I went up over a hill. I went a little too fast. My back brake was a little bit spongy, and so I was using my front brake a little bit. And I think it's kind of a blur now, but I think when I came down, I actually tapped the front brake. And those of you who ride know what I'm talking about. That's not a good idea, especially when your front brake works really, really well and sticks really, really well. And I think that's what happened, because the next thing I know, I was cartwheeling over the handlebars, and bam, I landed on my left shoulder on the back. And I will tell you what, I'm sorry, ladies, for this. Okay, you'll never know otherwise, but I swear that the pain I was in was worse than childbirth. It was intense. I broke my collarbone about 18 months ago, folks, and that was painful, and it did not hold a candle to breaking your scapula. Holy cow, it was bad. So bad that my bike is laying in a heap. I'm on the trail, and literally I am moaning and hollering, and no tears came to my eyes that I can remember. Okay, I didn't cry, but I'll tell you what, I was crying. I was such pain, and I was just, I knew I was hurt, and I knew I was hurt bad. It felt like I had broken ribs. It felt like I had re-broken my clavicle, and it felt like I had broken something else, and I didn't know what, and it was bad. Ended up being that I just broke my scapula, but just is a big deal, right? In fact, my doctor said, how do you do that? How do you just break your scapula and not re-break your, steel healing collarbone? I don't know. I'm talented that way. But here's the thing. I laid on that trail, as you can imagine, for 35 minutes before my son came back. Why? Well, because I gave him some instructions. I gave him some rules, and he's an obedient kid. And he drove ahead, and he thought, oh crap, Dad's not with me, but he told me not to stop. So he kept driving. Then he stopped. Finally, he's like, okay, the second rule, don't go back and find me. If you're lost, I'll find you. He sat on that trail for probably 25 minutes before he finally decided to break the rule. Finally decided that Dustin, Dad, doofus, should have given him another third rule. And that is, if the trail is straight and I don't come find you, you can backtrack. That would be okay. Yeah. So thankfully my son is wise, and he finally came back and found me. Long story short, we were able to find some other people on the road that had four-wheelers. It was an excruciating 3 miles back out on the back of somebody's four-wheeler with a broken scapula, but ended up getting everything fixed. It was fine. I'm still recovering, but everything was fine. But the reason I tell you this story is I want to ask the question, and I'm going to answer the question, or maybe just throw it out there. Maybe not answer it completely, but I want to ask the question today. When is it okay to break the rules? I want to pause here and remind you, of course, that we are sponsored by ANOW. ANOW, of course, is the program that I use to keep track of everything. It literally does everything in my office. It keeps track of our appointments. It keeps track of our orders. It keeps track of the status. It will even communicate with our clients and tell them the status updates. I'm telling you, this is absolutely an amazing program. If you've not used it in the past, I highly recommend that you check it out and that you go for their free demo. They will show you what it can do for you in your office. It is ANOW. You can find them at anow.com/coach. One more time, it's anow.com/coach. And we're back, folks. We're talking today about when is it okay to break the rules. I told a little story before the break about breaking my scapula, having to wait 35 minutes on the trail because I gave my son two rules. Don't wait for me and don't try to find me. And the problem is I didn't give him a third one. And that is if Dad doesn't come, it's okay to backtrack a little bit and see what's going on. Finally, he figured it out himself. He broke the rule, thankfully. I appreciate that, son. It was nice to see him, even though he was pretty much in hysterics when he found me, poor guy. A little bit scared of what was going on. But anyway, we got things taken care of. And I started thinking about this, and I thought, we have rules, and rules are there for a reason, right? The 2 rules that I gave him were for his own protection. And he followed them, and thankfully he did the right thing. And I'm glad that he did. But when is it okay to break the rules? I want to share with you maybe 3 times that I feel like it's okay to break rules. Okay. This is not a definite and closed list. This is very open, very written on paper, not on stone. In fact, I would love for you to comment on this episode and tell me what your thoughts are with regard to rules and when is it okay to break them. But I want to bring this around to appraisal and share with you 3 guidelines, if you will, 3 times when I feel like it's okay to break rules. Number 1, I think it's okay to break rules when the guidelines interfere with the good valuation process. Okay, let me give you an example on what I mean by that. I think it's fine to have client stipulations, client requirements, okay, as long as they do not get in the way, if you will, of your ability to be able to be a good appraiser. Let me give you an example. Years ago, this is many, many years ago, I worked for a big company that had, and you would recognize the name, it's a big bank. You would recognize them as kind of being a little bit at fault, if you will, as some of the perpetrators, if you will, of what we saw in 2008. Way prior to 2008, clear back in probably 2000, 2001, I worked for this company. And they had some very strict rules, guidelines, if you will. And one of them was that no matter what, you had to have sales within 3 miles. You had to use sales within 3 miles. And I'm thinking, okay, that's nice, but I'm in Idaho. I'm in Wyoming. I'm working these rural areas, and I may not have comps within 3 miles. So guess what? I didn't work for that company for very long. Yeah, they didn't like the fact that I valued valuation over following the rules. And it became a problem very quickly. And they just didn't like what I did. Well, here's the thing, folks. If I've got a comp that's 4 miles away, that's the best comparable, I'm not going to ignore that comp so that I can fulfill the responsibilities or the desires, if you will, of the AMC or the client or the bank. I'm just not going to do it. So just a thought. When is it okay to break the rules? When guidelines interfere with good valuation. Number 2, when personal safety is at stake. Okay. I'm a big opponent of comp pictures. I just am. Folks, I know my area. I've driven these things 1,000 times. I know people say, well, you don't know if there's a big high tension power line there unless you drive it. Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been there 1,000 times and I can see it from Google, right? I'm just not a real big fan of comp pictures. I can see that there are some reasons for it, and I'm not completely against it, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to put my safety at stake. And one of the things that I will not do, I refuse to do, is take a picture when people are in the photo. I just won't do it. And I know other appraisers are like, just drive past, don't roll down your window, just put your camera up there and take a picture, and then you can blur them out later. You know what, folks? Sorry, I'm a parent, and if I see a car drive past, I know it's totally legal, but if I see a car drive past and somebody takes a picture of my kids, even if I know as an appraiser they're probably just taking a picture for a comp, I'm going to have Daddy Bear come out. I really am. I'm not going to chase that person down and do damage, but I'm certainly going to be cautious, okay? And I'll tell you, there are people that will chase down and do some damage. And there's some neighborhoods that you would not dare take pictures in. So I'll tell you, I'm of the opinion, if your personal safety is at stake, I think it's time to break a rule. Number 3, final one I'll share with you is when integrity is on the line, okay? Let me give you an example. I have a statement in a lot of my reports, mostly FHA reports, that talk about well and septic. We have a lot of wells, a lot of septics in this area. For those of you who do FHA work, you know that we are supposed to certify that the well and the septic are a certain distance away from each other. Well, guess what? Both the well and the septic are underground. Yes, I know there's lids. Yes, I know there's the wellhead sticking out. I get that. but I have no idea what's underneath the surface. I don't know. I have no idea, especially when it comes to the septic. I don't know which direction it runs. I don't know how big it is. I don't know how long it is. So here's the thing. FHA wants to say that I certify that the well and septic are, so many feet apart. Yeah, I'll tell you, that to me is an integrity thing. And that to me is, I'm going to revamp that just a titch. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, to the best of my knowledge, or I'm making an extraordinary assumption, or I viewed the well head and the cover to the septic, but I can't certify for sure that they're within a certain distance. So far, so good. I've not been called on it so far. I know other appraisers that have been. They wanted something a little bit more definitive, so you might need to be a little bit careful about your language there. But folks, I'm sorry. When integrity is at stake, I don't want to certify something that I don't know just because somebody told me to do it. When is it time to break the rules? Well, I want to hear from you. You tell me, are there other things that you do or that you think are all right? When is it time to break the rules? When is it better to break the rules? When is it good to be like my son who finally said, okay, I know Dad said not to look for him, and I know Dad said to wait or to not wait, that I would catch up to him. He was finally smart enough to say, okay, there's a problem here. I'm going to go back and see what's going on. Folks, I wanted to share with you a great opportunity that is now available at theappraisercoach.com. That is the ability for you to be personally mentored by me over a certain amount of time, certain sessions, 5 sessions, 10 sessions. These are one-on-one coaching that I can take where you are at and bring you to the level that you want to be. What do you want to do with your business this year? I can help you get there. Check us out. Go to theappraisercoach.com. Again, it's theappraisercoach.com.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
All right. Sorry, editor. I am going to get rid of some of this heartburn. Woo! Always come prepared. Eagle Scout. Got my Pepsid AC. Thank goodness. All right. Here we go again. All right, back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back, folks. We're talking about oh my hell. Let's try that again.